This is our passage we worked off of last week. We're going to pick it up again this week. It's out of the book of Acts. It's a longer passage, but here's the short version where Jesus is going away after having been with them physically for 3.5 years. And as he's going away, he actually said earlier, it's good that I go away because I'm going to send this person called the Holy Spirit, and he's going to be with you all the time, anywhere you are. So Jesus is breaking the barriers of geography, one place, one time, and he's saying, listen, he said, you're going to be my witnesses. And here's the passage. It's Acts chapter 1. He said, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. So that's the first part. He said, wait, you're going to receive power. Then you're going to be my witnesses. And you're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth, the farthest reaches. And those are those concentric circles. You're going to start right where you are. You're going to move a little bit farther out into the neighborhoods of Judea and the towns. Then you're going to jump cultures and language barriers, and you're going to be in Samaria. And then some of you will be called to the uttermost parts of the earth. That's next week and the next 2 Sundays. People who literally, American folks who have taken that literally for the most part, and they are on the ends of the earth where there are no churches, where there are no believers, or where there's great need. So last week we talked about the church local. This week we're talking about the church in me. The part we're focusing on is you and I will be witnesses. A witness is just somebody that said, this is what I saw, this is what I've experienced, this is what I believe to be true, and I'm just telling you my side of the story. Anybody ever get called in to be a witness? Court, I saw the traffic accident. He was texting when he ran into you. I saw it. And so, yeah, I'm a witness.
Yeah, and we see on the early church this being played so strong in their lives that the word for witness and also was a word for martyr. They were so convinced. They were so the disciples, the first ones, and then afterwards, the first ones that early on, just before the crucifixion, they ran away. When they saw Jesus being kept, they ran away. Later on, they went all the way to the place where they put their life there into danger. The transformation that they have seen through the gospel, it makes them able to. I can put my life into this place to say, I would not deny my faith in who I have seen and who I have been transformed into. So this idea of it's like the song, where so I once was lost, but now I'm found. That is a witness. Yeah, it's like I'm a witness of a powerful transformation that the gospel, when it came into my life, it changed me. It was what Jesus says to Nicodemus, you will be born again. Have you had people who know you for so long, and then when you become Christian, they say, what happened to you? You were a different person. So it was like, it's the reason I've been born again.
Those people that went out, just think of that passage. You put it up there again, if you don't mind. Isn't it great that he didn't say, the Holy Spirit's going to come upon you and you're going to be my theologians? Or you're going to be my pastors. You're going to be my evangelists. You're going to be my church builders. No, he just said something very simple. You know how simple a witness is? So where I grew up in the Midwest, in my town, there was, what do they call it? Like an ice cream shop. But they used to call them like soda shops. Who can relate to that, right? And you could look in the window, and there were all these bar stools, kind of retro, kind of, look. But there was also an ice cream counter. And these 2 kids were standing outside the window, looking in, watching a guy with his son at a table eating an ice cream cone. And they were looking in the window, wishing they were in there eating an ice cream cone. But they didn't have any money for an ice cream cone. The man with his little boy noticed those kids. He realized what was going on, and he walked over to the kid behind the counter and said, hey, I want you to get an ice cream cone and bring it out to those 2 kids, and I'll pay for it. So he paid for the ice cream. The guy walked the cones out, and he handed them to those 2 little boys. Can you imagine how excited they were? They were so excited, they were just standing there eating their ice cream, and their friends came around and said, hey, where'd you get the ice cream? That guy came walking out of that shop with his little boy, and the two little boys said, "There he is. That's the guy." That's what a witness is. That's the guy that changed my life. This Jesus, I don't know a lot about it, but all I need to know is that's the guy that gave me free life, that gave me abundant life.
So the reason they stayed faithful, it was because of the evidence. The evidence is a sign or observation or indication that something is true. So the evidence of the transformation in their life, it was what made them faithful. It is like if someone comes into your house and ring the doorbell. I realize on the first service, a lot of people doesn't have a doorbell in their house. So in the past, people used to have a doorbell that you press the button, and when the ring goes on, it is a sign of that someone is on the other side. Someone is there. So it is announcing something that the person is there. So Paul is talking to the church. So we all hold on to John 3:16, because God so loved the world that he gave his son. So that is a verse that a lot of us know. But Paul, I'm not saying Paul is better than Jesus on saying, but I see this Paul talking to the church in Ephesians, and he's kind of going to another level, explaining to the church in Ephesians what because God so loved the world means. So he's telling this church, he said, as for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world, and to the ruler of the kingdom of the air, their spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at the one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were being by nature deserve of wrath. I realize some of us were not so bad. You know, I remember growing up in a Christian home. It was hard because I never used drugs. I never did all the kind of, when you hear someone giving a testimony, like, man, you were crazy. And I was like, as a good kid, I was like, man, I'm so good. I'm not like this man. But Paul is saying, this is for you, this all of us. One way or the other, we deserve the wrath of God. But, I love this, Paul say, but, because of his great love for us, because of John 3:16, God who is rich in mercy, and then he says this beautiful word. He say, you were dead in sin, now he made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgression, and it's by grace you have been saved.
I'm going to say, yeah, that's me. He's describing my life. Describing my life. He's saying here to the church and to us, he's saying, you're a miracle. You're a miracle. You're a walking miracle. Do you want to see a miracle? There they are, right there. That's one. That's one right there. That's incredibly powerful, because what has happened, through no good of our own, the love of God flowed into our lives. The transforming power of Jesus Christ flowed into my life. It's like it flowed in from this way, for example. I don't know about you, but I wasn't looking for Jesus, but Jesus was looking for me. And he found me. I should say I found him. He was there, and he opened my eyes by his grace, not by my own good. And that's why Paul will go on. He said, if you unpack this passage, by grace you've been saved, that not of yourselves, it's a gift of God, lest anybody should brag. Now, the writer John will say, listen, if that has flowed in, this is what flows out. 1 John 3:14, the word evidence. The evidence that it has flowed into my life is, we know that we have been raised from death to life. How? Because now we love each other. We love each other. In other words, it didn't just stop with me. The evidence That miracle has happened in my life is that now I love other people. In fact, John would say, anyone who does not love other people is not risen from the dead yet. They're still dead. That's a pretty sobering passage, depending on which direction you're looking at it. On one hand, it's an affirmation like, oh yeah, I used to be a gnarly individual. I used to be hard to get along with. I used to be critical. I used to be angry. I used to be this. I used to not get along with anybody. And all of a sudden, you know what's happened? That's evidence. Now, it's not that we're perfect. We still have a few people maybe that God has left in your life just to continue to shape you or, our character, rub off the edges a little bit. Maybe some of you, maybe a few people. But the point is that if love doesn't come out of me, I love that B.B. King song, When Love Came to Town. Anybody? When Love Came to Town. It's like something has changed. And if something hasn't changed, John is saying it's a good chance that something hasn't changed. Love hasn't come.
Yeah, and this is the evidence you are alive is we're breathing. And then the evidence we're being born again, it's love. We're loving. And Paul say, if it is not coming out love yet, you're dead. But it's like this love doesn't come from a class. We don't have a class and say, we're going to teach you 12 ways of love. How to love. Or even I'm thinking about, if God let me pick 10 people to love, it would be so easy to love. I will find 10 people that is able to love, and then if I can't love them, then I can replace. That would be easy.
First string.
Yeah. But it's like the love is the evidence that the Great Commission of Jesus has arrived in a way supernatural. It's like the doorbell rings, and then it's like something changed and transformed us.
You think about it, the world is asking a question, is God real? I think they're asking it whether they encounter Christians or not. They're asking the question, is this God that I hear these Christians talking about, is he real? You know what? That's a totally fair question. I think that's a good question. I don't think God chides people that are asking that question, but where do they see it? Where do they look? Jesus said this in John 13. He said, a new commandment I give you, love one another as I have loved you. There's the flow again. Comes in this way, goes out this way. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And then he says, the evidence will be that everyone is going to know, hey, you're my disciples. How? Because you love one another. That's like the simplest thing in the world to read and probably the most difficult thing to actually live. Right? Even a burly, gnarly, heathen, pagan Roman executioner. Think about this. The worst guy probably on the planet in Jesus' life. His job was to crucify men until they died. He said this when he watched Jesus die. Mark 15. When the centurion who had stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, said, surely this was the Son of God. What was he convinced? Because Jesus didn't die cursing his enemies. What did he say as he was dying? He said, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. That Roman soldier must have thought, wow, never heard that one before. What is behind that? Well, because Jesus came into the world not to condemn the world, but to save the world. So this guy was an eyewitness of that love, and it transformed him. You'd be surprised how many people are watching and waiting to hear what comes out of our mouths.
It's almost like I was thinking about this the other day as I was reading this. Imagine you're going to a job interview. There's two companies want to hire you, and you sit down there, and then you hear the paycheck, or you hear all the stories, but then you talk to the people who works on the company. And one say, don't go to the red room. The people there is not good. The other one say, hey, don't mix with the people of the blue room, because they are kind of, here in our work, we kind of tolerate the people, we tolerate each other, and you have to find your tribe. The other one said, here we love each other. in our company. Here we spend time getting to know other people and help each other. We spend our time the work, but we also getting to know. We genuinely love each other. Which company do you like? You will sign up to work for? The company who loves. I hope so. It is like the word is looking and it say it is that a real thing. The message about the gospel. As we live out that, we will draw people. Jesus in his prayer in John 17, he said, Father, I pray that they will be one, so that the world will know that you have sent me. That is a very powerful statement. For someone to know that Jesus has been sent by God, it was by people looking how we love each other, how we will love them, and that will change everything.
Summer's wedding season in Oregon. So if you've ever been to a wedding, odds are you've heard this passage read. It's out of 1 Corinthians 13. It's the love passage.
I like how you say.
Yeah. No. That's how people feel sometimes. Oh, he's going to talk about love. And listen to what he says. He said, you know what? He's speaking to this church. He said, if I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but I don't have love, he said, I'm just a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Josh, you got a resounding gong back there on the drum set? We can picture that, right? Bong. A resounding gong. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move a mountain, but I don't have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give my body to hardship, that I may boast, but do not have love, he said, I gain nothing. Do you hear what he's describing? He's describing like this weird gap between this external thing that I do versus something that should be flowing out of the inside. I've read this at weddings before, but honestly, this wasn't written to a couple getting married. It fits well, because you're just moving in with somebody you're going to have to practice, right? It fits great, but it was written to a divisive church. The context is in Corinthians. Corinth was a church full of all different kinds of people. Corinth was like a New York, if you will, a polyglot of languages and cultures, and they'd all had the same experience of, I once was lost, but now I'm saved. Who are you? I'm lost, but now I'm saved. What language are you speaking? I'm lost, but now I'm saved. Wait, you do what? So Paul's writing this letter. In fact, if you want to read it for yourself, just back up a chapter, and you're going to find in chapter 12, he's talking about diversity of gifts, diversity of perspectives. He's trying to get this church to not kill each other and to be a representation of the gospel. So in case that word isn't clear to you, he actually will flesh it out. Here's what he says. So next verse, love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. Love is not proud. It doesn't dishonor other people. It's not self-seeking. Now we're like, yeah, that's my marriage right there. Now I see why they read that. Love doesn't get angry easily. Love doesn't keep a record of wrongs. Love doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. Paul says, love always protects. Love always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. Is that a pipe dream, or is that actually possible through the supernatural, unconditional love of God flowing into our lives? I look at that passage, those 4 verses right there. Imagine if that was just a grid work that I looked through every time or before I made a decision or reacted to something going on around me. Imagine oh, wait a minute. I'm not going to react that way. You're not going to trigger me, because love is patient. Oh, you know what? You were unkind to me, so I'm going to be, No, darn it, love is kind. You got a new car. What? Oh, love doesn't envy. Hey, you talk trash. No, what? Love doesn't dishonor other people. Can you imagine if I lived my life through that grid work? You talk about a world-changing experience. Not to mention I'd be in a better mood most of the time.
You know, we can say this, man, this is a very hard thing to do. And honestly, by our own strength, I don't think we can last an hour trying to do this. But our source, it's God. John go and he said, we can only love because he loves us first. Because of, in one hand, we're being showered by God's love, and then it has to overflow to other people. Is that why he said, if it doesn't overflow to other people, it's because you're dead. You know, it's like if you fixing electrical in your house, what do you first think you want to find? If there's a power source going through the cables. If you don't find it, you will have to look for where it's broken, the cable, so that where you can find the source going. And the source is, it's not because we don't love people enough, because it's like, if you look how we're doing now, we have to love people more. Let them be free to do whatever they want. Let your kids run around the way they want, because your kids need to be loved. It is not this. Our problem is not because we don't love people enough. Maybe our problem is because we don't love God enough, so that doesn't overflow to loving other people.
You know what my behavior would look like? It's such a great idea here. If you don't check the source, I'd just be buying new lamps all the time. Oh, this stupid lamp doesn't work. Oh, the other one I bought, that stupid lamp doesn't work either. What's wrong with these lamp manufacturers? And then someone comes into your house and goes, you know, this thing is called the main breaker right here. Oh, it's not the lamps. It's the source. That's how sometimes I feel as a pastor when I watch people just go from church to church, just buying new lamps. I just need a new lamp. I need a new group of people. These people are hard to love. These people don't understand me. And again, I get it. God moves people around. But sometimes if we don't look at the source, like what's coming in? Like Ari was just talking about our worship leader this morning, you know. I've been home and I've just been focusing on I speak Jesus. What's coming in? What's coming in? Is it just TikTok videos coming in, informing the way I think and feel? Or is the Word of God, the eternal Word of Jesus? Do the words of Jesus play on the screen of my brain and in my reactions? What he's saying is so true. It's not that we don't, it's this battle for our affections. That's what it is. When he says we don't love enough, it's this battle. Because there is a battle for your affections and my affections. Everybody wants a piece of it. See? And Jesus said, I want to rearrange those affections to make them pure again. That's what Jesus did with people. Remember the woman at the well? Jesus said, oh, you've changed lamps a few times. But you know what I've got? I've got this living water. Oh, I want that water. What did he do? He spoke to her longings. The prodigal son found himself fulfilling his longings. I want my money. I want to go. I want to party. I want to drink. And he found himself in a place. And one day he said, you know what? I'm going to go back to my Father. Jesus tells these stories or has these encounters because he's pointing to our longings. Our longings are designed by God. Not all of them, but we're designed to yearn. We're designed to long for. The problem is the wrong things will drain us and the right things empower us.
This quote from C.S. Lewis, he say, if I found myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. It is so true that if like those Bruce mentioned, the woman on the well, or the other stories that Jesus talks about, where Jesus introduced himself by saying to them and saying, I am everything you are looking for. You were trying, and it is like, it is the insanity. It's trying the same thing over and over and looking for a different result. And where God is asking us to turn to him. You know, I love that song, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. You know, it's where the fountain of life, that everything we need is right there. And then it's like Bruce said, if I spend, it's almost lunchtime, so I'm going to make you think about food. But if you take a nice piece of meat and leave it overnight, marinate with a good spicy and everything, when you eat the meat, when you cook, you will taste that flavor. And then if you just go home now, take a meat, put it on the fire, throw some spice on top, it's not going to taste as good as the one that's marinated. And the world needs to see the people that is being marinated in God. And where our words, it's a godly word. In our reaction, it's a godly reaction. Our kids needs to see. My dad, he was not on TikTok or my dad was with Jesus because he just acted like Jesus. As I read in the Bible, my dad is right exactly like him. Or my mom is exactly like him.
You know, we did a marriage class here in the winter quarter, and I was talking to somebody in the back, and it was an older couple. I said, how long have you been married? They said, 41 years. I was like, wow, 41 years. 4 decades. And I said, what have you learned in 41 years? Give us one thing. And she said, marriage is hard. But she wasn't saying it with bitterness. She wasn't saying it with regret. She was just stating a fact. That's it. Punch your mate. Love is hard. Well, and it's like she was stating a truth. I was like, yes, thank you. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? But we live in a world where love is not at a premium. Like, people are finding it difficult to love. It's because there's a lot of things going on. There's a spirit of the age. There's 1,000 temptations. There's all these competition for affections. And there's a selfish human race. And love is hard. Isn't this what we do with our kids? We don't let our kids get away with, sharing is hard, so I'm not going to do it. No. We're going to work on this. We're going to slow way down here. And so this is this gospel, you guys. This is the good news. Yes, it's hard, but I don't have to do it alone. And if I do it with Jesus, something incredibly beautiful comes out. And a world just stops and says, wait a minute. What's with that? What that thing right there that you just did? What do you mean you forgave her? People are going to, honestly, I know it sounds like I'm being sensational, but people are going to ask you, what? What do you mean you just gave it away? What do you mean you're not angry after what you went through? Do you know you deserve? And the believer who's felt the love of God flow in says, oh, no, wait, you know what I deserve? I deserve Ephesians 2. I deserve wrath. And you know what? Instead of wrath, I got unconditional love. I got unconditional love. And yeah, it's hard. But man, I've tasted it. I've tasted it. And I want to walk it out. Because I want the church to be in me. I don't want to send you to my church. I want you to hear. You want to touch the church? Let me shake your hand. I was talking to a guy yesterday. I was in a store, retail store. I didn't know this guy. I'd never seen him before. And I just said, as he was checking me out, I said, hey, how's your day been going? He said, actually terrible. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I said, that's a bummer. He goes, yeah, my whole week's been terrible. Why's your whole week been terrible? Young kid. He said, I'm going through a divorce after many years, 10 years of marriage, 3 kids. And I was like, man, dude, I'm so sorry. And I said, listen, you got anybody around you that's talking truth and just understanding and wisdom to you? He said, nope. I just got a bunch of angry people around me. I gave him a card and said, listen, I'm a pastor. This is my number. Don't freak out. I just said, but listen, man, we have people that will talk to you and walk you through a difficult season so that you don't just self-destruct. People are hungry. Maybe I'm overstating it, but I think we're living in an increasingly crazier world. That should be increasing opportunity for us, right? Yeah, right? This is an amazing opportunity. It's like the lion hunters, that went out hunting for lions, and every pelt they were going to get $500, and they were asleep the first night camping, 3 of them, and they wake up and they're surrounded by lions. And the guy says, hey, you guys, wake up. We're about to get rich. It was just his perspective. You guys, listen, if the love of God has flowed into your life, the love of God can flow out of your life. Worship team can come up.
So Peter, he says this, as you come to him, the living stones, rejected by humans, but chosen by God and precious to him. That's us. You also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifice acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. So we become this spiritual house where God lives, and that should inspire us to have a fresh vision and to be church, to become a church, to be the church. Maybe we will have interaction with people that will never, and I will be honest, being a missionary for many years, and I'm like, I always thought about, I'm going to go to the Middle East or like into the village in Africa, and I'm going to find there people who never heard about Jesus or never been to a church. And that's true. You're going to hear our missionaries from Turkey where they live in the city, there's no Christian around. Imagine there's no one on Sunday going to church. But I found here in Salem the same thing. People who never heard. I was like, okay, English is my second language. Can you say it again? Yeah, never heard about Jesus. Never been to a church. And I'm not saying, I'm talking to preschool kids. It's like, yeah, my dad never took me to church. Adult people. And maybe me and you will be the closest church, as Peter say. We're the living church. The spiritual house where God lives, and then we can go and offer sacrifice. One of the beautiful things, Jesus talking to the disciples, and he tells the disciple, he blows the Holy Spirit, and then he say, I send you, and then you go and forgive sins. Go and be myself to them. Spread this, not spread love, but it's show them what Paul say, and that has to humble us. Where Paul say, we deserve a wrath. So how can I offer something to you better than what I deserve? It's because I got something that I didn't deserve. And I can be. We're just, like Jason always say, Pastor Jason say, we are just a beggar telling another one where we find bread. It is just like going downtown and say, hey, I found bread. Come with me.
We're going to finish with the Lord's Supper. And as we get ready, I want to invite you to just come and pick up the elements here at the corners of the building. And as you pick up, just hold on until we're all served. But before you get up, just take a second. Just take a second. Just take a second. Just settle down. We'll be done in a few minutes. But I just want you to reflect. When love came in, the love of God, not just a romantic love or not a brotherly love, but when unconditional love began to seep or burst into your life. What did that look like? Where were you? What was going on? Yeah. Just take a second and just meditate on that. Where were you? What was going on? Maybe it's today. Maybe for somebody here this morning, you've never experienced the forgiveness that is unconditional. Doesn't depend on you, but it depends on God. This God who's known you since the day you took your first breath and still loves you beyond your wildest imagination. He's tracked with you your whole life. And he says, listen, I stand at this door and knock. If you'll open the door, I'll come in. If that's you this morning, you're not here by accident. He invites you to open the door. Come in. We'll take the elements and then we'll take together when everyone is served.